Yeah, so this spec point is 1.9, evaluating the design of studies. So these studies are likely to be obviously related to topic one, so related to um the lifestyle factors and the effect on coronary heart disease, etc., etc. Excuse me. First thing is to make sure that we understand the word evaluate. So when you get the word evaluate as a command word in a question, you must say both sides, so like the pros and cons. So evaluating the design of study, what is good about the study, what's bad about the study, and they'll probably give you more of an indication than simply evaluate the study. So think about the pros and cons. In an evaluate question, there's no way you can get full marks if you don't do both sides of the argument. Okay. Usually you do pros, cons, and then like a summary at the end saying that these are the advantages of this, these are the disadvantages of this. In conclusion, um, so your summary is like a conclusion. In conclusion, I think that blah blah blah, or overall it's better because, or overall it's more suitable for this group of people because. Okay, so really, really important that we know that evaluate means we must say both sides of the argument in any evaluate question. Um, the next part of this is things like if we need to mention reliability. Okay, so if something's reliable, if we want to increase reliability, think about the first letter. That's what I always say. So reliability begins with the letter R. The way you make something more reliable is repeating, which also begins with the letter R. So whenever you're asked about reliability, repeat. Okay, you could also do that on the bottom of any method for any kind of required practical sort of question. So when you go through your method, you can always say repeat 3 times, take a mean to increase reliability. That's another place you could drop that in. So anything to do with making the study more reliable is to do with doing more repeats. Now, when we do an experiment in the lab, we generally say 3 repeats take a mean. Now, if you were doing a study into the effect of lifestyle on people and the effect of coronary heart disease, you're probably going to be testing like tens, hundreds, thousands of people. Okay, so the repeats are going to be much bigger numbers than they would in an experiment in the lab. Um, the next one is about your sample being representative. Okay, so what this means is the group of people that they investigated representative of the group of people you're making a conclusion about? So if you're making a conclusion of humans as a whole, then you can't just study 30-year-old females, or you can't just study 60-year-old heavy smokers that are obese. It's not a representative sample of the whole population. So it's really important when you design a study or when you kind of evaluate a study in a question that the sample reflects the variety of characteristics in the population. If you're going to generalize it to the whole population, then your sample needs a variety of ages, it needs a variety of exercise levels, it needs a variety of people that smoke and don't smoke, it needs a variety of all of these different factors. Okay, so the sample you take needs to have the same variety of characteristics as the whole population. Now, if you were making a conclusion that there's a link between some kind of lifestyle factor and an increase in cardiovascular disease in men, then yes, your sample would be okay to just have men. But if you were, doing a sample of just men and then you made a conclusion that encompassed all people, then that's not okay. Okay, so you need to have the same variety of characteristics in your sample as you would in the whole population. Okay, and the word for that is representative. That's what that means. Um, if your sample is not representative, then we say it is bias. Okay, so if not, then your sample is bias. Right? The last word we need to look at in these kind of questions is validity. Is the study that we're looking at valid? Now, valid is when your investigation or your study answers the question. Now, the question will be something that has a single independent variable. So when we're doing an experiment in the lab, it might be that you look at the effect of the temperature on the rate of reaction. So you need to make sure you change the temperature. That's your independent variable. You probably do 5 different temperatures. Everything else needs to be the same. So you need the same concentration of enzyme, the same concentration of substrate. You need all the other factors, the pH, to be the same. So making something valid means that the one independent variable that we're changing, the one thing we're trying to investigate, the one thing that our question is about, must be the only thing that's changing. Okay, so valid means that only the independent variable is changed, all other factors are controlled. Now, in the lab, that's relatively easy because we can control the pH using a buffer. We can control the concentration of things by measuring it out, etc. Now, these are studies that are done on humans, and it is not easy to keep everything else the same. So, for example, I'm going to now go into an example. For example, let's say we're trying to look at the effect of smoking on cardiovascular disease. If that's the case, then really we should be keeping everything else the same. So we need people that have exactly the same levels of cholesterol, that have exactly the same um, blood pressure, that do exactly the same levels of exercise, and you're not going to find that. Okay, so you just need to make sure that you are aware that these kind of studies into the effect of some kind of factors on cardiovascular disease are unlikely to be totally valid. Okay, people will do their best, scientists, people investigating it will do their best to keep other factors the same, but um, it's not going to be perfect. To decrease the effect of this, the impact of this, we just need to have as many people involved as we can. Okay, so larger numbers is going to try and kind of mitigate against that problem of investigations that are on people. All right, so that's the end of that spec point.